What was apartheid?
South Africa's legalized form of racial discrimination was known as apartheid, separateness. And it classified individuals into one of four ethnic groups: white, black, colored, mixed race, and Asian. Apartheid laws limited where different groups could live and where they could work. Apartheid was repealed in 1990.
How did a lake kill more than 2,000 people?
In August 1986, Cameroon's Lake Nyos, which sits upon a volcanic vent, produced an eruption of carbon dioxide and hydrogen sulfide gases. The cloud of acidic gas blew into nearby villages, killing more than 2,000 people while they slept.
Where is the Bay of Pigs?
The Bay of Pigs is a bay in southwestern Cuba. In 1961, the bay became the location of an attempted coup against the Cuban government by revolutionaries trained and financed by the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency. After the attempted coup failed, the United States abandoned the revolutionaries, most of whom were killed or captured in the days following the coup attempt.
How fast do you have to travel west to arrive earlier than when you left?
Normally, when flying between London and New York, the trip takes 7 hours. Thus, with the 5-hour difference in time between the two cities, you arrive 2 hours later than when you left London. If you could have flown on the now decommissioned Concorde, which traveled at Mach 2, 1,300 miles 2,092 kilometers per hour, 2 times the speed of sound, the trip between London and New York would have taken only 3 hours. Thus, with the 5-hour difference in time zones, you would have arrived 2 hours earlier than when you left.
When was the Second Agricultural Revolution?
The Second Agricultural Revolution occurred in the 17th century. During this time, production and distribution of agricultural products were improved through machinery, vehicles, and tools, which allowed more people to move away from the farm and into the cities. This mass migration from rural areas to urban areas coincided with the beginning of the Industrial Revolution.
Why does a firstborn son get everything?
Primogeniture is the system of inheritance in which all inheritable land and property is passed on to the firstborn son. A common worldwide tradition, primogeniture enabled a family's possessions and status to remain intact as they were passed from generation to generation. This practice of the entire inheritances benefiting only the firstborn son resulted in subsequent sons needing to find alternative livelihoods.
Why is Greenland considered an island while Australia is a continent?
Australia is 3.5 times larger than Greenland and comprises most of the land on the Indo-Australian plate, while Greenland is distinctly part of the North American plate.
What are the largest Canadian urban areas?
Toronto, 5.1 million people, Montreal, 3.6 million, and Vancouver, 2.1 million, are Canada's largest urban areas.
What was the longest year in history?
The year 46 BCE was decreed by the Roman Emperor Julius Caesar to be 445 days long in order to correct the calendar, which was 80 days off, based on the seasons.
Why is the sky blue?
This is one of the world's most frequently pondered questions, and contrary to what some people believe, the sky's blue color is not due to the reflection of water. Light from the sun is composed of the spectrum of colors. When sunlight strikes the Earth's atmosphere, ultraviolet and blue waves of light are the most easily scattered by particles in the atmosphere. So, other colors of light continue to the Earth while blue and ultraviolet waves remain in the sky. Our eyes can't see ultraviolet light, so the sky appears the only color remaining that we can see, blue.
What is a water clock?
Water clocks were the first clocks that didn't rely upon sunlight, as with sundials, to tell time. They operated by dripping water from containers at measured intervals. There were two key types of water clocks, those that measured time by the amount of water remaining in the clock and those that measured time by how much water dripped from the clock and filled a measuring device.
Where is the Putrid Sea?
The Putrid Sea, also known as the Savash Sea, lies to the east of the Isthmus of Perico, between Crimea and Ukraine. It is a swampy area of salty lagoons.
What is Land's End?
Land's End has quite an appropriate name, as it is a cape at the southwestern tip of Great Britain that is the westernmost point of England, the end of land in the west.
Which state borders the most others?
Tennessee borders 8 states: Arkansas, Missouri, Kentucky, Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi. Missouri also borders 8 states: Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Illinois.
What is a Mediterranean climate?
A Mediterranean climate is a climate similar to the one found along the Mediterranean Sea. Hot and dry in the summer and warm and wet in the winter. Areas that are renowned for having Mediterranean climates but are not near the Mediterranean Sea are California and Chile.
What is El Niño?
El Niño, also known as ENSO or the El Niño Southern Oscillation, is a large patch of warm water that moves between the eastern and western Pacific Ocean near the equator. When the warm water, about 1 degree Celsius warmer than normal, of El Niño is near South America. The warm water affects the weather in the southwestern United States by increasing rainfall, and is responsible for changes in the weather throughout the world. El Niño lasts for about 4 years in the eastern Pacific Ocean and then returns to the western Pacific near Indonesia for another 4 years. When the warm water is in the western Pacific, it is known as La Niña, the opposite of El Niño. When La Niña is in action, we have normal climatic conditions.
Where is the Middle East today?
It is generally agreed that the Middle East includes Egypt, Israel, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, the countries of the Arabian Peninsula, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Oman, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Qatar, Iraq, Kuwait, Turkey, and Iran. Most regional specialists also include the countries of Northern Africa, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and Libya. The new countries of Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Armenia. Former Soviet republics are also often included in the region.
How many Native American reservations are there in the United States?
There are 310 reservations in the United States. Although the land is owned and administered by the federal government under the Department of the Interior's Bureau of Indian Affairs. Each reservation has limited sovereignty, including its own legal system.
What is Caprivi's finger?
Caprivi's finger is the name of the narrow strip of land that protrudes from the northeast corner of the otherwise compact country of Namibia. The land was acquired by German Chancellor George Leo von Caprivi from the British in 1890 in order for Namibia, known then as German Southwest Africa, to have access to the Zambezi River. This strip of land is approximately 300 miles, 480 kilometers long but no more than 65 miles, 105 kilometers, at its widest.
Does a cashmere sweater come from Kashmir?
The Kashmir goats, which make the fine wool known as cashmere, do come from the Kashmir region in India, a disputed area not controlled by any one nation. This region, which is located in northern India bordering on Pakistan, is plagued by violence and unrest. In 1947 the British decided to split the colony of India into two separate countries, one Hindu, India, and one Islamic, Pakistan. The state of Jammu Kashmir has a mixed population of Hindus and Muslims, which has led to conflict within the region. India and Pakistan have waged 3 wars over this region, and sporadic violence continues today.
Why is there a tiny piece of Russia in the middle of Eastern Europe?
The important seaport of Kaliningrad, wedged between Poland and Lithuania, was annexed by the USSR at the end of World War II. Though once the capital of East Prussia and ethnically German, the Soviets quickly evicted the Germans and replaced them with ethnic Russians. In 1991 many of the autonomous republics within the USSR gained independence, though Kaliningrad lies west of these new countries. Its inhabitants are ethnically Russian and thus remained part of the Russian state.
Where is the oldest church in the Americas?
The oldest church, the Cathedral Basilica Menor de Santa, was built by Columbus' son Diego. The first stone was set in 1514 in Santo Domingo, the Dominican Republic.
What part of a hurricane is most damaging?
Floods caused by hurricanes are the most destructive element. The low-pressure center of a hurricane causes a mound of water to rise above the surrounding water. This hill of water is pushed by the hurricane's fierce winds and low pressure onto the land, where it floods coastal communities, causing significant damage. Hurricanes also spark tornadoes that contribute to the devastation.
What is the difference between the Greater and Lesser Antilles?
The Greater Antilles refers to the four largest Caribbean islands: Cuba, Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, and Jamaica. All smaller Caribbean islands make up the Lesser Antilles.
Where does wind come from?
The Earth's atmospheric pressure varies at different places and times. Wind is simply caused by the movement of air from areas of higher pressure to areas of lower pressure. The greater the difference in pressure, the faster the wind blows. Some detailed weather maps show wind speed along with isobars. Areas of equal air pressure, indicating the level of air pressure.
How do people cope with continual light or darkness in high latitudes?
Murmansk, Russia, is the largest city north of the Arctic Circle. The city receives no sunlight for several months out of the year, making it one of the most psychologically extreme environments on the planet. Residents of the city, about 470,000, walk along artificially lit streets that give the appearance of sunlight, undergo artificial sun treatments, much like tanning booths, and often suffer from the condition known as polar night stress. Polar night stress symptoms include fatigue, depression, vision problems, and susceptibility to colds and flus.
What are the westerlies?
These winds flow at mid-latitudes, 30 to 60 degrees north and south of the equator, from west to east around the Earth. The high-altitude winds known as the jet stream are also westerlies.
Who are the Sunni and Shiite Muslims?
The Sunni and Shiite are two sects of Islam. About 85% of Muslims are Sunnis, while Shiism is especially prevalent in Iran. After Muhammad's death, two relatives claimed to succeed him. Their followers developed into the two sects.
What transition took place within Hong Kong in 1997?
The sovereignty of Hong Kong, a former British territory, was transferred to China on July 1, 1997. following the expiration of a 99-year treaty signed by China and the United Kingdom. The treaty gave the United Kingdom the use of the trading port of Hong Kong, as well as a section of land on mainland China known as the New Territories. Since the treaty for the New Territories was due to expire in the late 1990s, the United Kingdom and China entered into negotiations to hand over to China both Hong Kong, covered by an in perpetuity agreement, and the New Territories. China agreed to the terms of the negotiation, which granted Hong Kong special administrative rights, limited sovereignty and self-rule, and allowed its economic structure to remain in place until 2047. Hong Kong was and continues to be one of the most developed territories in the world, as well as one of the great banking and financial centers.
Why are road maps so difficult to fold?
The problem lies with the multitude of folds required to return the map to its original, folded shape. The easiest way to fold a road map is to study the creases, and to fold the map in the order that the creases will allow. But once you've made a mistake, the folds have lost their telltale instructions. To fold a road map, begin by folding it accordion style, making sure that the front and back of the folded design appear on top. Then, once the entire map is folded accordion style, fold the remaining slim, long, folded paper into 3 sections. And, voila, your road map is folded.
Where is Gaul?
Gaul was an ancient country that included most of modern-day France. It is thought to have been settled by Celtic people from the north, as well as Balkan people from the east. Other empires took control of Gaul, and it eventually became the Kingdom of the Franks, the forerunners of the French.
How many refugees are there?
There are approximately 8.3 million people who are classified as refugees, living somewhere outside of their home countries, because of deplorable conditions at home, warfare, or government and societal discrimination and economic oppression.
How large a part of the Soviet Union was Russia?
While the Soviet Union consisted of 15 Soviet Socialist republics, the largest was the Russian Soviet Federated Socialist Republic, RSFSR. The RSFSR, also known as Russia, comprised 3/4 of the Soviet Union's territory and over half of its population.
Are all countries divided into 1-hour time zones?
No. China and some other countries do not divide their territory by time zones at all. Several countries use half-hour time zones, including Afghanistan, Australia, Burma, India, Iran, the Marquesas, and Venezuela. Also, the Canadian province of Newfoundland uses half-hour zones. Quarter-hour divisions are used in Nepal, as well as in some provinces, including the Chatham Islands.
How much beef does Australia export?
Australia is responsible for more than 26% of the world's beef exports, 1,203,000 metric tons.
Why is Rhode Island called an island even though it's not?
Rhode Island's official name is Rhode Island and Providence Plantations, and includes not only the area of the mainland, the location of the city of Providence, but also 4 major islands. The largest of these islands is named Rhode Island, from which the state gets the first part of its name.
How many active volcanoes are there in the world?
There are about 1,500 active volcanoes around the world. Most are located in the Ring of Fire surrounding the Pacific Ocean. About 1/10 of the world's active volcanoes are located in the United States. A volcano is considered active if it has erupted in the last 10,000 years.
How does Old Faithful shoot water into the air?
A geyser, such as Yellowstone National Park's famous Old Faithful, is the result of an underground aquifer that is warmed by heated rocks and magma underground. There is a small fissure or crack in the aquifer's surface that allows the steam and heated water to jet from the ground, about every hour at Old Faithful.
What are latitude and longitude lines?
Lines of latitude and longitude make up a grid system that was developed to help determine the location of points on the Earth. These lines run both north and south and east and west across the planet. Lines of latitude, those that run east and west, begin at the equator, which is 0 degrees. They extend to the North Pole and the South Pole, which are 90 degrees north and 90 degrees south, respectively. Lines of longitude, those that run north and south, begin at the prime meridian, which is the imaginary line that runs through the Royal Observatory in Greenwich, England. The lines of longitude extend both east and west from the prime meridian, which is 0 degrees, and converge on the opposite side of the Earth at 180 degrees.
What are fossil fuels?
Underground fuels such as natural gas, oil, and coal are all known as fossil fuels because they are encased in rocks, just like fossils. It takes millions of years of compression and the building up of dead plants and animals to create these fuels.
What is continental drift?
The Earth is divided into massive pieces of crust that are called tectonic plates. These plates lie wedged together like a puzzle. The plates slowly move, crashing into each other to form mountain ranges, volcanoes, and earthquakes. The plates are like rafts floating on water. This is called continental drift.
What is the National Geographic Society?
Founded in 1888, the National Geographic Society has supported exploration, cartography, and discovery and publishes the popular magazine National Geographic, the fifth most popular magazine in the United States.
How many countries does the United States recognize?
The State Department is the official U.S. government agency that recognizes independent countries. It maintains an updated list of the official independent states of the world. As of this writing, there are 194 states listed. Taiwan and Vatican City, though commonly considered countries, are not included on this list. Kosovo, which gained independence in February 2008, is the newest country to be recognized.
Are lines of longitude and latitude all the same length?
No, they are not. Only the lines of longitude are of equal length. Each line of longitude equals half of the circumference of the Earth because each extends from the North Pole to the South Pole. The lines of latitude are not all equal in length, since they are each complete circles that remain equidistant from each other. The lines of latitude vary in size from the longest at the equator to the smallest, which are just single points, at the North and South Poles.
Where are the highest rivers in the world?
The highest rivers are in Tibet, where there are two that stand out from all the rest. The Aiding River at 20,013 feet, 6,100 meters, and Brahmaputra River at 19,751 feet, 6,020 meters.
What are dust devils?
These columns of brown, dust-filled air, which can rise dozens of feet, are not as evil as the name suggests. They are caused by warm air rising on dry, clear days. Winds associated with dust devils can reach up to 60 miles 96.5 kilometers per hour and cause some damage. But they are not as destructive as tornadoes and usually die out pretty quickly.
What is a gypsy?
Gypsies are nomadic tribes that travel throughout Europe. Though they once were thought to have originated in Egypt. Hence the European name for them. Linguistic studies have placed their origin in India. These traveling tribes have been subject to centuries of persecution, including gypsy hunts and extermination at the Auschwitz death camp.
Which religions are practiced by the most people?
Christianity has the most adherents, with 33.32% of the world's population practicing some form of this faith. This is followed by Islam, 21.01%, Hinduism, 13.26%, and Buddhism, 5.84%.
How can an area be lower than sea level?
Land in the midst of a continent can be lower than sea level because the land is not close enough to the sea to be flooded with water. Movement of the tectonic plates pushes areas like the Dead Sea in Israel and Death Valley in California to elevations lower than sea level.
What is a cartel?
A cartel is an organization made up of businesses that band together to eliminate competition, collude to fix prices, and control supply and production of a product or service. In South America, the word refers to the drug cartels of Colombia, most notably the Medellin and Cali cartels, both which were crushed by the Colombian government. Later, government members and lieutenants of former cartel operatives stepped in and created their own cartels. Today, they are still manufacturing and distributing cocaine and its derivatives into the United States, which is the biggest consumer of cocaine in the world.
What is the leading cause of disaster-related death in the United States?
Lightning is the leading cause of disaster-related death in America. From 1940 to 1981, about 7,700 people died from lightning strikes. 5,300 from tornadoes, 4,500 from floods, and 2,000 from hurricanes. So, it's best to avoid open spaces, high ground, water, tall metal objects, and metal fences during an electrical storm.
Where is the Horn of Africa?
The Horn of Africa is the eastern protrusion of Africa that includes Somalia, Ethiopia, and Djibouti. The easternmost tip of the horn is called Geesgwerdefwi.
Why is Cabinda separate from Angola?
Cabinda, though a province of Angola, is separated from the bulk of Angola by approximately 25 miles. 40 kilometers, of the Democratic Republic of Congo. In 1886, Belgium gave this tiny area to Angola. Cabindans have recently taken up arms against Angola in the hope of obtaining independence.
What is the busiest airport outside of the United States?
Heathrow Airport in London, England, has more than 62 million passengers passing through the various terminals annually. This is followed by Charles de Gaulle International Airport near Paris, France, with 54 million travelers. And Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, with 47 million passengers.
How does military time work?
Often known as military time, 24-hour time is used by many countries. It begins at midnight with 0000 and the day ends with 2359. The first two digits represent the hour and the last two digits represent the minutes. Since there are 24 hours in a day, each hour is numbered 00 through 23. For instance, 0100 is 1 a.m., 1200 is noon, 1300 is 1 p.m., and 2043 is 8:43 p.m.
What is the primary religion throughout Latin America?
Due to Spanish and Portuguese colonization, most Latin Americans are Catholic, about 83%. Protestants make up about 7% of the region. And the rest are atheists, non-religious, animists, or other religions.
Does lightning ever strike twice in the same place?
Lightning can and often does strike in the same place twice. Since lightning bolts head for the highest and most conductive point, that point often receives multiple strikes of lightning in the course of a storm, so stay away from something that has already been struck by lightning. Tall buildings, such as the Empire State Building, often receive numerous lightning strikes during a storm.
How wide is the Strait of Gibraltar?
The strait, which connects the Mediterranean Sea to the Atlantic Ocean between Africa and Spain, is 8 miles, 13 kilometers, wide at its narrowest.
Who was Kublai Khan?
Kublai Khan, 1215 to 1294 c. E. was the grandson of Genghis Khan. Under him, the Mongol Empire reached its peak in 1279. He founded the Yuan dynasty, moved its capital to Beijing in the 14th century, and would later move it back to Mongolia, as his empire fell.
How many taxi cab drivers are there in the United States?
More than 230,000 taxi cab drivers work the streets, with more than 38% being immigrants to the United States.
How old are glaciers?
Glaciers present today were created during the last stage of glaciation, the Pleistocene epoch, which lasted from 1.6 million years ago to about 10,000 years ago.
What are the 5 least populous U.S. states?
The least populous U.S. states are Wyoming, 493,000, the District of Columbia, 572,000, though not technically a state, Vermont, 608,000, Alaska, 626,000, and North Dakota, 642,000.
What is a coral reef?
Coral reefs are formed by the accumulation of calcium carbonate that comes from the external skeletons of tiny animals called coral polyps. The polyps live in shallow, warm water, and thus congregate around islands in the tropics, where coral reefs are abundant.
What is a long lot?
Long lots are long and narrow pieces of property. This type of division of land is common in Europe and places in North America that were initially settled by the French, such as Quebec and Louisiana. Each lot has a narrow access to a stream or road but is several hundreds of feet deep.
What are the different kinds of clouds?
There are dozens of types of clouds, but they can all be classified into three main categories: cirriform, stratiform, and cumuliform. Cirriform clouds are feathery and wispy, they are made of ice crystals and occur at high elevations. Stratiform clouds are sheet-like and spread out across the sky. Cumuliform clouds are the ubiquitous cloud, puffy and individual. They can be harmless or they can be the source of torrential storms and tornadoes.
How does Japan get its oil?
Having no oil itself, Japan must import all the oil it needs. To accommodate the amount of oil necessary, there is a constant stream of oil tankers spaced approximately 300 miles. 483 kilometers, apart that bring oil to Japan 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Behind only the United States and China. Japan is the third biggest importer of oil with more than 5.5 million barrels brought in every day.
What is inside the Earth?
At the very center of the Earth is a dense and solid inner core of iron and other minerals that is about 1,800 miles, 2,896 kilometers, wide. Surrounding the inner core is a liquid, molten, outer core. Surrounding the outer core is the mantle, which makes up the bulk of the interior of the Earth. The mantle is composed of three layers. Two outer layers are solid and the inner layer, the asthenosphere, is a layer of rock that is easily moved and shaped.
Who was Alexander von Humboldt?
Alexander von Humboldt, 1769 to 1862, was a German geographer who explored South America, Europe, and Russia. Von Humboldt traveled deep within the Amazon rainforests, developed the first weather map, and wrote a 5-volume encyclopedia in which he sought to describe all of human knowledge about the Earth. Von Humboldt was the world's last great polymath, one of encyclopedic learning.
Which place in South America is part of the European Union?
Although not a country, French Guiana. Lying just north of Brazil and one of the 26 departments of France, is part of the European Union. It uses the euro as its national currency.
How much rice does China produce?
China is the world's leading rice producer and is responsible for about 1/3 of total rice production in the world. The country produces about 188.5 million metric tons of rice each year. India, the next biggest producer, produces about 142 million metric tons. 90% of the rice in the world is produced in Asia.
What is an urban area?
An urban area consists of a central city and its surrounding suburbs. Urban areas are also known as metropolitan areas. In some cases, urban areas can spread dozens of miles beyond the central city.
What is the most common last name in the world?
Zhang, or Chang, is the surname used by more than 100 million people.
How does the hydrologic cycle work?
The movement of water from the atmosphere to the land, rivers, oceans, and plants and then back into the atmosphere is known as the hydrologic cycle. We can pick an arbitrary point in the cycle to begin our examination. Water in the atmosphere forms clouds or fog and falls, precipitates, to the ground. Water then flows into the ground to nourish plants, or into streams that lead to rivers and then to oceans. Or it can flow into the groundwater, underground sources of water. Over time, water sitting in puddles, rivers, and oceans is evaporated into the atmosphere. Water in plants is transpired into the atmosphere. The process of water moving into the atmosphere is collectively known as evapotranspiration.
What is the ozone layer?
The ozone layer is part of the stratosphere, a layer of the Earth's atmosphere that lies about 10 to 30 miles. 16 to 48 kilometers, above the surface of the Earth. Ozone is very important to life on the planet because it shields us from most of the damaging ultraviolet radiation from the sun.
How many Native Americans were killed during the period of European colonization in the Americas?
The great majority of Native Americans who had made what is now America their home for tens of thousands of years, were killed outright by European colonists. Diseases brought to the Americas from Europe, including smallpox and the plague, also decimated the indigenous tribes. Furthermore, intertribal warfare, spurred on by the political interests of Europeans, enslavement, and the mass killing and forced relocation in the 19th century of the hundreds of thousands of Native Americans who still managed to survive all conspired to nearly destroy native tribes and their cultures.
Do oceans get more rain than land?
The oceans receive just over their share, percentage-wise, of the world's precipitation, about 77%. The remaining 23% of precipitation falls on the continents. Some areas of the world receive far more precipitation than others. Some parts of equatorial South America, Africa, Southeast Asia, and nearby islands receive over 200 inches, 500 centimeters, of rain a year, while some desert areas receive only a fraction of an inch of rain per year.
What are the British Isles?
The British Isles are composed of the two large islands of Great Britain and Ireland, separated by St. George's Channel, and the many small islands nearby. The British Isles include two countries, the United Kingdom and Ireland.
When did the Iraq War begin?
The war, which has been called the Second Persian Gulf War and Operation Iraqi Freedom, began on March 20, 2003. Although President George W. Bush proclaimed the end of the war aboard the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln on May 1, 2003. Declaring the mission accomplished, the war was still being waged 5 years later and with no end in sight.
What is the most populous country in the world?
China is home to more than 1.32 billion people, which means that 1 in every 5 people on the planet is Chinese. India, the second most populous country, has 1.13 billion people and is expected to surpass China's population sometime before 2050. Both countries have much larger populations than the third largest country, the United States, which is home to 304 million people.
Where is the northernmost rainforest?
Juneau, the capital of Alaska, is in the middle of one of the largest and most northerly rainforests in the world, which is located within the Chugach National Forest and Chugach State Park. Others extend to the northern regions of Japan and Siberia, Russia.
What are the capitals of Bolivia?
Bolivia has two capitals. La Paz is the administrative capital, while Sucre is the constitutional and judicial capital. Several countries divide national functions between cities.
What is a delta?
A delta is a low-lying area where a river meets the sea. Often, the river divides into many tributary streams, forming a triangular-shaped area. The river deposits a large amount of sediment at its mouth, creating excellent soil for farming once the channel of the stream moves. One of the most famous deltas is where the Nile River meets the Mediterranean Sea. Other major deltas include the Mississippi River Delta in Louisiana, the Ganges River Delta in India, and the Yangtze Delta in China. The word delta comes from the Greek letter delta, referring to its triangular shape when written.
Was the flooding of the Nile predictable before dams were built?
The summer floods of the Nile River were so predictable that the Egyptian calendar was based on their rise and fall. Flooding on the Nile occurred from late June until late October. The floods brought nutrients and sediments beneficial to the nearby agricultural lands, making farming productive throughout the remainder of the year. Measuring scales called nilometers were placed along the river, and not only measured the river height but also served as a calendars.
What is the longest river in the United States?
The Missouri-Mississippi River is the longest in the United States. Approximately 3,860 miles, 6,211 kilometers, in length.
Where are cyberspace and the Internet?
Cyberspace is not space in the old-fashioned sense of the word at all. The Internet is composed of millions of computers around the world, which are connected to each other in order to provide information across cyberspace as though there were no global boundaries, mountain passes, or oceans to cross. When you send email to a friend on the other side of the planet, it passes from your computer to that of your internet service provider and then from computer to computer, making its way to your friend in a matter of seconds. Similarly, when you access a page on the World Wide Web, your computer tells another computer which tells another computer that you want such and such document delivered to your computer, and it arrives in seconds. Some geographers measure and map cyberspace by looking at where most of the internet's traffic flows, though, to and from.
Where is Crimea?
Protruding into the Black Sea. Crimea is a diamond-shaped peninsula attached by the Isthmus of Perikko to southern Ukraine. Though Crimea declared its independence from Ukraine in 1992, it later compromised and became an autonomous Republic of Ukraine.
Where is the Barbary Coast?
The Barbary Coast refers to the countries in northern Africa that are located along the Mediterranean Sea. Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, and Egypt. Though the name Barbary Coast comes from the Berber people who inhabit the region, it is best known for its association with pirates from the 16th through the 19th centuries.
How many religions have holy sites in Jerusalem?
Judaism, Islam, and Christianity all regard Jerusalem as a very holy city. The Western Wall, the remaining wall of the Second Temple, is the holiest site in Judaism. Islam's third holiest site is the Dome of the Rock and the mosque, both located in Jerusalem. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre is a holy Christian site.
What is Africa's largest lake?
Located in eastern Africa, Lake Victoria is Africa's largest lake. With a surface area of approximately 27,000 square miles, 70,000 square kilometers. It is also the world's second largest freshwater lake, after Lake Superior. Lake Victoria is bordered by Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania. The lake was named by British explorer John Hanning Speke, the first European to see the lake, in 1858, in honor of the reigning British Queen.
What are the 4 climatic regions of the Andes?
The Andes are known for their 4 defined climatic zones, which are based on elevation. The lowest zone, Tierra Caliente, hotlands, is ascribed to the area from the plains to 2,500 feet. 762 meters, and is where most of the population resides. The second zone is Tierra Templada, temperate land, which is from 2,500 to 6,000 feet, 762 to 1,829 meters. The third zone is Tierra Fria, cold land, which is from 6,000 to 12,000 feet, 1,829 to 3,658 meters. Above 12,000 feet, 3,658 meters, is the fourth zone, Tierra Helada, frozen land.
When did Burma become Myanmar?
In 1989, the name of Burma changed to Myanmar when the military took control of the country. Following the president's resignation as a result of riots and national turmoil.
How many Muslims make a pilgrimage to Mecca each year?
Each year, approximately 2 million Muslims from around the world make a pilgrimage to Mecca during the last month of the Islamic calendar. While hundreds of years ago the trip took weeks or months to complete. From the vast reaches of the Islamic Empire. Today most people from great distances use the modern conveniences of travel and fly to Saudi Arabia.
Where are the prairie provinces?
The grassy, central Canadian states of Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta are called the prairie provinces.
Where is the largest coral reef in the world?
The Great Barrier Reef is the largest coral reef in the world. Located just off the northeastern coast of Australia, it extends for over 1,200 miles, 1,930 kilometers. Much of the area is now protected as a marine park.
Which city has the most taxis?
Congested Mexico City is home to more than 60,000 taxis among its 3.5 million automobiles. The city with the second greatest number of taxis is Mumbai, India, which has more than 55,000.
What is Iceland's leading export?
Over 3/4 of Iceland's exports are fish. The fish industry employs 12% of the nation's workforce. And the country is economically vulnerable to fluctuations in world fish prices.
Where did Bombay go?
In 1996, India changed the name of the third largest metropolitan area. Population 19 million, from Bombay to Mumbai.
How many layers are in the atmosphere?
There are 5 layers that make up the Earth's atmosphere. They extend from just above the surface of the Earth to outer space. The layer of the atmosphere that we breathe and exist in is called the troposphere, and extends from the ground to about 10 miles, 16 kilometers, above the surface. From about 10 miles to 30 miles, 16 to 48 kilometers, up lies the stratosphere. The mesosphere lies from 30 to 50 miles, 48 to 80 kilometers, above the surface. A very thick layer, the thermosphere, lies from 50 all the way to 125 miles up, 80 to 200 kilometers. Above the 125 mile, 200 kilometer, mark lies the exosphere and space.
What nationalities were the 9/11's terrorists?
Out of the 19 terrorists who participated in the 9/11 attacks, 15 of them were from Saudi Arabia. 2 were from the United Arab Emirates, 1 was from Yemen, and 1 was from Morocco.
What is the oldest continuously published newspaper in the United States?
In 1764, Thomas Green founded the Hartford Courant in Hartford, Connecticut, which is the oldest continuously published newspaper in the United States.
What other countries have border disputes?
For years, India and Pakistan have had disputes about the borders of Kashmir, a region located in northern India. Other countries in Central America, like Honduras and El Salvador, have had disputes over very small parcels of land because of ill-defined border markings implemented during the country's colonial period.